Good afternoon. Half a day, the Committee on General Government Operations and Appropriations now called to order. Today is Tuesday, May 16th. The time now is 4 o'clock. In compliance with the open government law, the notices for this public hearing were posted on the Governor of Guam Public Notice Portal, KGTF, PBS Channel 12, and disseminated via email to all senators and all main media broadcasting outlets on May 3rd and May 11th. The agenda this afternoon is the budget on the Guam Veterans Affairs Office, relation to Bill 26-37 COR, Committee on Rules by request of I Magaʹhågan Guåhan, the Governor of Guam, in accordance with the Organic Act of Guam, an act making appropriation for the operation of the executive branch of the Government of Guam for fiscal year ending September 30, 2024, making other appropriations, establishing miscellaneous administrative provisions. At this time, I ask the members of the Guam Veterans Affairs Office to please rise while the Sergeant at Arms will swear you in.
Please raise your right hand. Under penalty of perjury, do you all affirm that any and all information you provide today, whether it be verbally, electronically, and in writing, be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Mr. Chair, under roll. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The general rules for this budget hearing is please provide my legislative staff with any document for photocopying and distribution. Panel members are asked to remain in the room for questions or for additional testimonies may be desired by members of the committee. Questions and testimonies shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda. Personal inference as to the character or the motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. Any violation of the general rule of conduct will result in removal from the budget hearing. Proper form and decorum shall be practiced by all present in the public hearing room for these proceedings. Individuals who fail to maintain proper form and decorum will be restricted from the participant and will be escorted and removed from the room. I ask all members asking questions or responding from the panel that be nice, be kind, and let's just be polite throughout this hearing. When you speak, please make sure that the microphone is on and that you speak into the microphone. Please state your name and your title for the record. I'd like to acknowledge my colleagues that have joined me this afternoon. I have the Oversight Chair for the Veterans Affairs, Senator Dwayne Nicholas, and Senator Roy Canata. I'd ask now the Veterans Affairs, Mr. Agustin. Please introduce the staff that you've brought along, and then begin your opening statement on your budget. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Senator Agustin. Thank you for your service. Hafaday, Senator Dwayne Nicholas, thank you for your service also, sir, our Oversight Chairman. And the good gentleman, Senator Roy Canata, thank you, sir, for joining us today. To my far left is my administrative assistant, Ms. Ashley Munoz. To my immediate left, this gentleman here, Mr. Joseph Meno Jr., is the administrative officer. And to my right is Ms. Lucia Perez, who is the Special Projects Coordinator for the Guam Office of Veterans Affairs. And my name is Pierre Tim Uggan. I am the Director of the Guam Office of Veterans Affairs. And if you allow me, I will open with my remarks. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of this committee. As stated earlier, my name is P. Tim Uggan. I am a 31-year veteran and a retiree from the United States Air Force. To the best of our abilities, we have executed the services to all of the veterans and their families with the funding provided. Today, we are here to openly discuss solutions to assist us in continuing to provide customer service to the veterans who have sacrificed their time and their lives so we all can continue to enjoy the freedoms we have today. It is our duty to ensure that these brave men and women receive the care and support they need and earned. We will continue to work tirelessly towards that goal. We are grateful for their service and sacrifice, and we will do everything in our power to honor their commitment to our country. We request your approval and support for the budget request, which will enable us to continue our mission and improving the lives of veterans, dependents, and service members. Over the last 35 months, the Guam Office of Veterans Affairs had made significant strides in improving its services for our veterans. One of the most notable achievements is the cleanup of the cemetery, which has helped to honor the memory of our fallen heroes. Additionally, by establishing our records management plan has made it easier for us, for veterans to access their important documents and receive the benefits they deserve. The fourth pillar within our office, which coordinates medical requests and works with community partners, has also succeeded. And finally, our outreach plan to seek out veterans who have yet to register with the office has been instrumental in ensuring that every veteran receives the support that they need. Overall, the Guam Office of Veterans Affairs has made great strides in improving the lives of veterans, and we are committed to continuing this vital work. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm just going to go ahead and recap some of our accomplishments for fiscal year 2022. We're going to start with the National Cemetery Administration. So we received visitors from Big VA, NCA. We completed the audit of the Guam Veterans Cemetery and received its final compliance review summary. The site visit dates was last year, May 17th and May 20th. And these were the results. For critical compliance percentage, we received a 50% grade. For the high compliance percentage, we received 72. And for medium compliance percentage, we received a 97%. Now, I'll have you know that some of these, especially in the critical compliance percentage, the reason why it's 50% is because they graded the outlay of the 1950, 1960 head markers and positioning of the interments there. Now, we do not receive funding for these burials had happened during the Department of the Navy's oversight of this. So we are currently negotiating with NCA to seek out if we can receive any additional funding. Hopefully they can include it in the grant, and I'll get to the grant later, for us to realign those head markers and position it so that it meets the requirement according to the audit. All the other compliance percentages, I'm happy and proud to say that we are approaching 100% on all the others. The U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs on October 1st, 2022, awarded fiscal year 2023 the grant for the expansion of the Guam Veterans Cemetery in Pidi. Our federal application identifier, which is FAI GU 22-06, this VA grant opportunity was a total up to $8.2 million, but will be at most the actual cost of construction as found by the final audit. The Guam Veterans Affairs Office agrees that it will use the grant to fund the construction of all the above ground cribs, grading, drainage, irrigation, landscaping, and supporting infrastructure. Now, what's really significant about this is that I know that we were here a year ago. We mentioned that we were pre-approved for $7 million, but as we met with them again, we spoke about the inflation rates, the shipping rates that have increased during the COVID times and have not went down or reduced in cost. So that allowed us to receive $8.2 million, and they just included the inflation rate, right? Because they were only using a 25% inflation rate to Hawaii, but Guam is not an island in the Hawaiian Islands, and we told them to kick that up a notch. So we are thankful for the Big VA and National Cemetery Administration for adhering to our requests and thus awarding us $8.2 million. We have paid all prior year obligations dating back to 2013, Mr. Chairman. Just have you know that thanks to us bringing on Mr. Joe Meno, we were able to dig back and pay all our prior obligations, and to this date, we are very current. One thing that we have done in the past year is stand up our records management, and from that, I am here today to give you hard numbers of our current status of total veterans on Guam. So we manage a total of 23,370 active folders. Of that, 20,643 are male, 2,727 are female, and 11,056 are over the age of 65. And that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to highlight that as those are the Vietnam veteran era veterans that are deteriorating in health at this time. So, which is another reason why we stood up our VHA segment within our office, and which is administered by Ms. Lucia Perez here. Our total data registry for the veterans of Guam is 13,026. That's a hard number, okay? During the past 2 years, dating back to calendar year 2021, we had a total of 177 burials at the Guam Veterans Cemetery. In 22, we had 194. And currently, as of the month of April, we have a total of 92 interments at our Guam Veterans Cemetery. Within our agency, we have a total number of 19 employees. 7 of these are classified, 12 are unclassified. Our prior year outstanding personnel services documents to deal, we have no outstanding. We have 5 employees with documents at DOA HR, which is estimated total amount of $20,476. We have no obligations to merit bonuses, and we have included in our budget the 22% GPP salary increase of $99,558, which is incorporated within the budget digest which was submitted. Regarding our budgeted supplies and equipment for the year, as you know, Mr. Chairman, we were not given any budget for operational costs, even though we have a $50,000 remainder that's encumbered and will be used up by September 2023 at the end of the fiscal year. Regarding our capital outlay projects, which is come into play with the use of our ARP funding, our GVC, our CIP project for Guam Veterans Cemetery, the chapel, administration, and maintenance building, we have encumbered $847,569.03, which has been encumbered by December 2024, and project set to complete by December 2026. These requests are sitting over at DPW for their processing and for the awarding of A&E. Our GVC grant, cemetery grant, architectural and engineering is pending a request for bid under at DPW, along with our CIP project, which is also awaiting. We have the award already for A&E for our CIP projects, which is Genesis, but we're just awaiting for additional approvals from DPW so we can kick the dirt and get this thing rocking and rolling. In regards to federal assistance, we have 0, albeit we're still standing by for the grant. And with that, sir, the recap of our ARP funding that our office have received. We received a total of $1,215,482.27. We already have expended or encumbered $90,558 for equipment and supplies. Our reserve balance is $277,054.91, and that's for the 3 personnel that are stationed down at the cemetery, which we have plans to turn over into our staffing pattern and have them become classified employees. The total cost for our, as I mentioned earlier, the total cost for our chapel maintenance and administration CIP project is $847,569.03 whole cents. And yes, Mr. Chairman, we will use all funds and expend it by the end of the fiscal year. I yield my time to you, Mr. Chairman, for any questions that you may have for me or my staff. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Huggan. I would ask the Oversight Chair, Senator Snickles, if he has any questions for the panel.
Good afternoon, gentlemen and ladies. Thank you again for showing up today. You mentioned that you had a grant to expand the current size of the cemetery, how many more vacancies will you have if after that expansion with that grant?
So with the grant expansion, we will be constructing
Miss-
additional,
if
I'm
you-
sorry, Lucia R. Perez, Special
Thank you.
Projects Coordinator with the Guam Office of Veterans Affairs. With the grant, we will be constructing an additional 1,246 crypts at the cemetery. What we will also be doing is making sure that the foundations of existing crypts are also solidified.
Thank you, ma'am. And at the current rate, when would it be full capacity down there with the current facility?
With the current facility, without the construction of the additional crypts, we're looking at 2.5 years. Once the additional crypts are constructed, we're looking at a 5 to 7 year.
Thank you so much. And also wanted any more plans to get more grants to beef up the current facilities and maybe bring them up to?
We do have another grant that is in queue with the National Cemetery, and this is for the East Agaña U.S. Naval Memorial Cemetery, and that grant is approximately $3.4 million. And what we're going to do is harden the facility and also build additional columbariums. So there's no space for in-ground, but there is space to build crypts, so that when we, in terms of columbariums, so we have any urns that need to be interred, that will provide additional capacity of approximately 250.
Thank you, ma'am. You know, you mentioned earlier that at one time it was the Naval Administration that was taking care of the facilities. Do you know when that transferred over to be a GovGuam responsibility? You don't mind?
Actually, thank you, Senator, for that question. This year we're celebrating 40 years of Government of Guam management over the cemetery. So the U.S. Department of Navy turned it over to Government of Guam in September 1983.
Wow, thank you for that. I just want to thank you again and keep up the good work. I'm pretty sure the veterans of our island really do appreciate your hard work and the maintenance that you do to upkeep the cemetery. I'm very appreciative of that. Thank you. I have no further questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, thank you, Senator Snickers. I'd like to also recognize my colleague, Senator Brown, who's joined us this afternoon. Senator Cananta, do you have any questions for the panel?
Not much, a few, but you stated earlier, Mr. Again, thank you for your service, that you don't have any funds for material cost or supplies. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. In the budget that was given to us, it only covered the warm bodies and utilities.
So how do we anticipate for you to bury a dead body? Just out of curiosity.
So currently, what's keeping us afloat right now is the reimbursement that we receive from the National Cemetery Administration. So for every veteran that we bury, we request for reimbursement for the activity.
And how much is that?
It's approximately $800 per veteran.
And does that cover, is that sufficient to cover the service?
So since we rectified and created a SOP and internal checks and balances with this fund, which started back in August of 22, we started processing all the claims, and year to date from that time, we're actually staying afloat and able to get the supplies and equipment for the team that's down there, as this reimbursement fund is designated for equipment and supplies for the cemetery specifically.
Do you have any equipment that is absolutely necessary that is not available at this time?
Yes.
Procurement?
Actually, so right now we have the lowering devices, the lifters for the caskets for the crypts, and the canopies for the burials throughout the cemetery. This is something that we are trying to make our way to get those items. I know that I think it was the clearinghouse that has some type of fund from DOI. I'm not sure where the source is from, but they assured us that they are working on procuring some of that for us.
How long has that been in supposed procuring?
I believe we were working with them earlier this year with that. So I would say since the beginning of the year.
So how do you bury people in the tomb or in the crypt?
Well, the equipment that we're using now is still good, but
Okay.
it's old. And every time we lower that thing, we're crossing our fingers and our toes that it's not going to snap. Sometimes we have to borrow from funeral homes.
The lowering device or
Yes.
the lift?
Lowering device.
How much does the lowering device cost?
So a lowering device is approximately $15,000 for the device itself and the accessories. Shipping and all the tariffs involved would bring it to approximately $19,000.
I mean, I don't need a symbol to know that that's something that really needs to be fixed and mitigated. I would love to not, I mean, I honestly don't think no servicemen or women or family members should ever be crossing their fingers to make sure that the loved one is not gonna bungee cord out of the plot. That's very unfortunate news to hear. So I hope that we are steadfast with finding that resources to get those things done. Again, we got to do better. I don't think our veterans deserve this kind of service, but I applaud you guys' services at this time. Do you guys have any federal funds that have not been exhausted given the pandemic, or were you guys allocated any American Rescue Plan funds or any federal grants to the tune of the pandemic?
So we have not received any federal grants, but in terms of the ARP funds, yes, and the director did say that we have encumbered those costs already, and we expect that by December of 2026, all the funds that was allocated to the Guam Office of Veterans Affairs of $1.2 million will be utilized.
Okay, thank you. In regards to record management, I'm a strong believer that we keep collecting paper. With paper, you need to store it somewhere. And we also live in the middle of an island. I mean, everything is either humid or we got some vermin pest control issues. So I would like to ask that, or I'm asking you right now, is the storage facility adequate, or where are you storing it, in a closet, or where's the paper being stored? Because I'd hate for this documents to be stored in a container or an unfit space, and then we have aircon leaking into the box, and then we're just ruining the document that we worked so hard to get from Ton Jose or want it from wherever, and then all of that documents are just wasted time and wasted effort. We want to make sure that all that information and data collected is retained in its best condition. So I hope that we also are digitizing information as much as possible.
Yes, Senator. Thank you for that, highlighting that. Actually, that's one of the things I've stood up in our office, which is records management. We are currently imaging documents to this date, and I think we're at maybe 11,000 files already that we're imaging. And we're trying to reduce, as you said, the storage capacity in our building, since it's basically a duplex. But we have created the file plan. We have a system in place. We are recording daily, imaging these records. And it'll probably take 2 to 3 years for us to become full circle, where everything will be digitized daily. So that's what we're working on currently.
Again, our time here is also limited, right? So I wanted to make sure that this SOP is passed down to whoever becomes your successor, if in the event you do have a successor. I hope that your team has developed some kind of process for the next team that takes over, right? With that being said, one last question. Land, your property is quite congested as it stands right now. I'm not too sure what your property is right now, but being that what I can see right now is we're already kind of running out of space, is there any property you guys looked at or any additional real estate that you guys would need to be procured to service the men and women of colors?
So are we talking about the administration building, or we're talking about the cemetery?
cemetery?
Okay, so one of the things what we first identified was to immediately mitigate the gap, because we figured out that based on the number of burials, we annualized that into the timeline of when we're going to reach capacity, which would be in 2.5 years. So this grant that we applied for will take us up to at least 7 years. And within this time frame, the idea or my vision, which I have, and the staff knows that this is where our marching towards, is to apply for an annex that would take us 20 to 30 years. And that's something that is part of our long-term planning for the cemetery, the Veterans Cemetery. And yes, that would have to be either up the hill where there's DOD property, ancestral lands, and some other government property up there, or according to the National Cemetery Administration, it could be anywhere else on the island, and it will still be considered an annex of the PD Veterans Cemetery. So we won't have to open up a new one. We can still continue to go under the umbrella, because they're not really, the cost of developing a brand new cemetery is in almost $100 million. And they're not giving that kind of money out from the National Cemetery. That total grant annually is only $40 million. So what they're doing is they're piecemealing that out for the number of states and counties and cities that are applying for expansion or annex of their current existing footprint. So yes, that's part of the plan for us moving forward in expanding more space for the future of all our island veterans. And that plan is to take it 20 to 30 years.
Thank you for that information. Mr. Chair, that would be all.
Thank you. Senator Brown, do you have any questions for the panel? Ma'am?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I did want to ask, I see you have LTAs here, I guess. I'm assuming you have unclassified employees beyond yourself, Mr. Agan? What positions are these individuals occupying? Because I'm seeing an explosion of LTAs all over the place, and I'm kind of wondering why we have LTAs in government agencies to the degree that we have. You have a very small agency, but it says here there are 9 unclassified this year, and will be 9 unclassified for this upcoming fiscal year.
Yes, ma'am. So in the cemetery, and we brought this up last year during the budget hearing, there is a specific requirement for cemetery worker, which is 2 years. So in order for us, we went to DOA. There is no listing for anybody that's eligible to fill these classified positions. We've only filled one individual that was eligible for it. The others that we have there now, which is under the LTA, they are in position to be eligible this year to fill the classified positions because they meet the 2-year requirement of specifically working in a cemetery. This is part of the requirement from DOA, and in the job description, it's, what do you call it, triplicate paper. That's how old that requirement is. So we are working on updating the job description so this can cast a larger net to get cemetery workers and laborers down at the cemetery. We're restricted to the number of applicants, thus the number of LTAs for them to qualify. And this year, they do qualify.
What legal authority gives you the authority to hire all these LTAs? What authority do you have to hire LTAs?
I mean, I don't understand your question. I noticed that Director Burns mentioned that it's not against the law, right? So he said that earlier. So,
well, that's his, I guess, legal analysis.
Well, we abide by the Department of Administration's rules and regulations. So
well, I will see.
If they don't allow it, then I won't do it.
I'm sorry, Mr. Agan. I'm sorry. You don't get to talk over me.
Okay. Well, thank you, Senator.
I'll extend you the courtesy to respond, but you know, please don't overtalk me. I can handle my own up here. I'm asking that question because I'm seeing what I see you know, I've been at this a long time. I'm seeing in government agencies, because it goes around the classified service. We all talk about upholding the classified service in the government of Guam and how the government of Guam positions actually were created in the first place, how the classified positions were created. you know, the standard has been you have a director, maybe a deputy if you have a sizable agency, maybe a private secretary if you have a board or commission that you're staffing. So I'm starting to see, I mean, with a very small agency, all these positions, and again, the intent of these hires, they don't have to meet any other requirement. They get hired, and is this the vehicle under which we get hired? We become LTA so we can get the experience, so we can get hired as classified employees. I wasn't aware that was a route. So I'm bringing this up because I'm starting to see what I view as an abuse of the LTA process. And maybe policy-wise, we need to determine, should this be allowed? Because it's in direct competition with the classified service. And I hear complaints from classified employees in Governor Guam who see LTAs as political hires. I've never been a classified employee myself, so I can be called a political hire in my government career. But they don't have to meet any qualifications. And there's some that are offended by it because they think, you know, that puts these unclassified some positions over them. So I'm bringing up that concern because I'm starting to see this replicated in a number of government agencies in a way I've not seen it at all. So that's my concern that I'm bringing it up, and I'm going to probably get a legal opinion whether or not this is allowed, because there's a very specific creation of the classified service in Governor Guam. It also specifies who gets to have unclassified employees. The governor, the legislature, the staff. There's only certain positions that I know that are specifically outlined as unclassified in government service. So I think we need to get that looked at, because you always have the ability in your department or agency to readdress the qualifications for positions in your agency. That option has always, any time of the day, week, year, you have the ability to do that. If you feel the qualifications are so extensive for the type of work that's to be performed, if this are your field workers that are going out that are actually maintaining a cemetery, cutting the grass, bush cutting, painting, water blasting, and those that are assisting with regards to burials, if you feel that the original job description is really excessive in terms of the actual job being performed, you have the opportunity to modify that and have that process to DOA. So maybe that's something you should have looked at, because I am concerned. I don't know why we are seeing this competition that has no basis other than, you know, they get referred and they get hired. That's the extent of the qualification. They don't need to know or do anything else. And that to me is bothersome, because that is direct. If we're going to uphold this classified service in Governor Guam, then we shouldn't be allowing this degree of LTAs being hired that don't have to meet any qualification. Hopefully they do. Maybe they just happen to know the right people depending on whatever administration that they're in. But I think it's concerning to see this increase. You had mentioned earlier with regards to the current cemetery, the Veterans Cemetery here in Agagna, that you're looking at building, I guess, these crypts for those remains that are cremated. And where do you intend to put them on that particular property?
So thank you for the question, Senator. So like we discussed last year, we took a look at the property, and the columbariums, when you're looking at the East Agagna Cemetery facing out the ocean, it's not going to be so high where you don't see the view, the ocean view, but it'll be respectful enough where we're able to inter, so be alongside the fence line. It's not going to be on the roadside, so it doesn't get damaged. You'll still have a view shed, so to speak, so that you're able to, thank you, you're able to see out to the ocean, and also keep in line or be in line with any archaeology, because that cemetery is also a historic cemetery. So we have to comply with that also.
So I mean, you might need to provide us a map visually. Yes. I kind of understand if I'm looking at it, are these crypts going to be to the left and right of the current cemetery?
Yes, ma'am.
And how many feet are on each side? I mean, I drive by it, but I don't, you know, it doesn't look very wide. How much footage are you talking about?
So we were looking at, I think it was about 20 by 40, 20 in, 40 this way, right? And just making sure that the colors and everything matched, so the greenery, the aspect, the landscape did not deter, and also was in line with any present Hagåtña restoration city concept.
And how high is it going to be?
That would be 4 columbarium levels up. So it wasn't, so if you go to the cemetery to Petey,
Oh,
I know you go there all the time.
I'm a regular visitor up there.
Yeah, I see you. So the columbariums, which are located next to the admin office, those little skinny ones, they'll be like that, except it's only going to be 3 levels versus the 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
It would be helpful if you could provide the committee.
Okay.
I'm not a member of the committee, believe it or not, Mr. Chair, just in case you didn't remember. But I'm here. If you could provide the committee a copy of at least any drawings or whatever you may have, just so that we have an idea. Because, I mean, I don't think we want to change. I certainly would not want to see the change too much of the aesthetics. of not that people probably think of aesthetics, but, you know, I think the historical presence of those that have been buried there and then how it is laid out to me is, you know, I want to keep that. I mean, it's like going to the Sumai Cemetery. I wouldn't want to see columns come up, even though I realize we're all inevitably, you know, our time will come and we have to have our remains addressed one way or the other. But just because of historical nature, I don't know that I myself personally would want to see that the Hagåtña Cemetery modified too much from its current visual presence that we have. And then I understand the property that is behind it where the trees are, is that part of your footprint?
That is part of the
footprint. Even though now I know it's currently being used as a parking lot, but that is part of that.
It is part of the footprint, ma'am.
Are there any plans for that? Are you going to continue to keep that as green space?
It's going to be green space, and part of the design is to provide what is called a gabion wall. So it looks like it's a nice wall that would help protect the interred coffins or caskets that are in the ground from going out to ocean, because it's so close to the water line. So we will have gabion walls along the riverside, which is when you're facing out towards the ocean.
Have you reviewed that with coastal management? I'm concerned. I mean, I understand the purpose of gabion walls, but they can also contribute to erosion as well. It's not we think putting up gabion walls, there's nothing, you know, they're cages with rocks or concrete in them.
Yes, ma'am. So no, we haven't reviewed it with coastal management, but that is part of the architect and design plan of the grant. We had included that.
Well, I would look at that a little further, because
yes,
aesthetically, gabion walls are very unattractive.
Yes,
I don't know how you're planning on. Then also, what impact does it have to the shoreline? How does that change the Hagåtña shoreline on that side? Because you are adjacent to the park there.
Adjacent,
right?
Yes, ma'am, right there.
So I think we would need. I would certainly want to see that addressed, because aesthetically, I mean, I've seen gabion, you know, I wouldn't want to see that for the cemetery. It aesthetically just, to me, doesn't blend in very well. But I think we would like to see the plans of what's intended to be placed there. With regards to the ongoing maintenance, I think overall, I've seen fairly good maintenance of the cemetery. I mean, I know the ongoing issues with, you know, mold and stuff. It's very difficult because they're white, but there is paint. Are you looking at the type of paint you can get that can reduce that, so the maintenance, again, is not something that has to happen as often?
Yes, ma'am.
Maybe just occasional water blasts will maintain the area.
Yes, ma'am. Based on your recommendations last budget hearing, we ensured that when we took a look at the paint, it is a 5 to 7 year, and included the mildew resistance, so it would be easier to maintain. And our cemetery team also goes about trimming trees around the area, because that also affects how the mildew builds up.
Sure.
And then we have them water blasting 3 times a year, and then repainting, like they're currently doing that now. So 3 times a year the team does that.
And I know Director brought up earlier about the markings that are there. Of course, the ones in the earlier areas from the 1950s. I see that you have the plaques there to indicate the years of for those particular burials. Do you currently, are you working on a directory?
Yes, ma'am. So we have a planner who's working within our burial office, and they have gone around with the burial team, and they've updated the listings of every individual that is buried within the cemetery, and they are now setting up a website. We, meaning our office, is working with a designer, a web-based designer, so that individuals, when they're looking for their loved ones, whether it be off island or on island, doesn't necessarily have to come into the office or go down to the cemetery. They can just log into our website and get that information. So we are currently working on that process.
Well, I think that would be great. You go to a lot of the national cemeteries, you're able to access that information. Someone might be a family member looking for a relative or whatever the case may be, or a former, someone they served with, that they may want to go and pay their respects. So certainly I appreciate that's a very positive addition with regards to improving the cemetery and access for people. So Yes, I know, it's very nice. I mean, I see better maintenance of the grounds and stuff, which is most appreciated. Other than that, I don't have any other questions, Mr. Chair, but I really think as we go through government agencies, we need to look at this LTA situation, because I think it's unfair also to the employees. We have some, I hear, that have been at it for years with no job security and full benefits, and I think we need to make a decision. We either have classified service or we don't. I think that would need to be addressed, and certainly I look forward to the submittal to the committee of the design plans for the Hagåtña Cemetery so that we can look at it. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Brown. And yes, you're part of my committee, just to remind you. So everything we get, we'll make sure you get a copy. And you know, as they mentioned, Mr. Guåhan, the maintenance is great. I know we have the memorial service coming up, and I know that it's already reaching out to all the biker groups I'm part of.
Yes, sir.
They're trying to coordinate so they can come down and help clean up and so forth. And also maybe please send to all the senators to hopefully participate in the reef laying.
Yes,
like I've done pretty much every year, and
yes.
So we can get this going so that every soldier that has fallen is getting a reef. That's really what the goal has always been, the reef across America, right? This is pretty much it. So we want to make sure that at least on Guam, let's get every reef across every fallen veteran, fallen member. And with that, I don't have any questions other than I thank you for your submission and for your input and your presentation. And if we can just get a copy of your testimony, what you read out, Mr. Guåhan, I appreciate it, so I can provide it to all the members of my committee. And with that, again, I want to thank everyone for attending this hearing and for providing feedback and suggestion. Do you have anything, Ms.? You want something you wanted to brief us? Go for it.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, before we close out here, I wanted to mention that this fiscal year, we had the SERVE Act, which is the Bill of Rights, which the act actually appropriated $500,000. So that act actually helped us stand up the VHA portion of our office, which Ms. Perez is running now, which is the Health and Medical Services Liaison within our office on the ground, boots on the ground. We are requesting for that to also be appropriated in the next fiscal year. And also, we just wanted to confirm that the continuance of the Burial Equity Act, the monies that were put aside for the National Guard and all the reserves that are not included as a veteran that meets the 24 consecutive months requirement from the National Cemetery Administration, that money is reserved for them that don't meet those minimum requirements. So those are the two things that I wanted to make sure that we take a look at and move forward and add it for next year's FY.
All right, just submit it in writing so that all the members will see that and they know that what you've testified today will figure out a way how to make sure it happens. Because, you know, for the Guard members that are not entitled to the full veterans benefits,
correct,
they still serve.
yes.
And they should get recognition. That being said, I want to thank everyone for attending this hearing and for providing feedback and suggestion. The Guam Veterans Affairs Office budget hearing is now adjourned. The time is 4:43. And thank you, and please be safe. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you. Bye-bye.